And this is the third and final segment, but not like forever, just of this particular episode of the DMZ America podcast, and specifically the one for Thursday, December 7th, 2023, December 7th. Of course. Oh, and I'm Ted Rall coming to you from the left.
Scott Stantis coming to you from the right.
And so, Scott, today is Pearl Harbor.
I want to hear your FDR imitation. Go.
On this day, which will live in infamy, the United States was attacked by the Empire of Japan. Pretty bad, right?
Not great.
No,
I didn't feel it.
You're much better at
it.
shit than I am. It sounded a little Kennedy-esque, which he did not sound at all. Let's hear yours.
On the day, December 7th, 1941, a day that shall live in infamy.
Much better.
The United States forces at Pearl Harbor were attacked unprovoked by the Empire of Japan.
Bravo, old bean.
I'm having sex with more than one cousin.
Which is, well, it's not really cheating if your wife is lesbian. But anyway, I'm trying to do my math here. 82 years ago, right?
82 years.
80 years ago to the U.S. was attacked at Pearl Harbor. It's also the second anniversary of the October 7th, 2023 Hamas attack against Israel. Basically it's about, and of course, the last big surprise attack against the United States was 9/11, 2001. Why you were saying earlier at the beginning of the podcast in the first segment that people who kind of don't understand why Pearl Harbor was important or why 9/11 was important. And I kind of have to admit, I'm not sure 9/11 was important, really. I mean,
of all people, that shocks me.
It affected me, but I'm just wondering in the grand political, did the US become different in any kind of huge way?
Oh, yeah.
It became, it was militaristic before. It was, we were very disrespectful of our privacy rights. The government, the NSA was spying on American citizens before 9/11. It just seems like maybe we became more paranoid, but we were always bloodthirsty people.
Yes and no. Look at that. The military engagement we had prior to 9/11 were Bill Clinton and Bosnia-Herzegovina, when he had a bombing in Kosovo, when he had a bombing campaign that sadly was successful. And sadly, because boots on the ground. If you don't spill blood, then that's not war. It makes war antiseptic. And that's what we thought war was going to be going forward. Remember, it was the end of history. Remember all that? 9/11 was massively. 9/11 was massively important, Ted, because that's why it shocks me to hear you say that, because it changed so much foreign policy, foreign engagement. Preemptive wars became A-OK.
Objectively, wasn't the Vietnam War kind of a preemptive war?
That was a proxy war.
Grenada was a preemptive war.
Yeah, that was, they had Cuban guys running tractors, so you had that. Come on.
Yeah, we were in grave danger there. Thank you, President Reagan. We salute you for keeping America.
Well, it was an expansionist move by the Cuban government.
Panama,
so
also not like
right. Panama, I think El Salvador, Nicaragua. We had our toes in the water in all those places.
But Panama, we had a hot war. We actually sent Marines.
Yeah, it lasted a few weeks. It was really pretty quick, and we got Noriega and we put him in jail.
That was an employment dispute.
But here's my point about 9/11. And what's interesting, the reason I mentioned it earlier is that my students at my class, they said, why do we even still talk about 9/11? And it struck me, none of those students were even born before 9/11. They weren't even infants. So it really is kind of weird to think about, but it's true. So when your parents or grandparents talked about Pearl Harbor, my grandfather was at Pearl Harbor. He was actually on a ship. He was a merchant seaman, and he was actually there. And we think there's that famous photo of I think it was the Arizona exploding the big fireball.
Mm.
And you see in the background this guy standing on a ship. I think we were pretty sure that's my grandfather, because that's something a Stantis would do. We go, wow, this is cool. Let's watch this.
Wow.
And he actually had a piece of steel from one of the ships blowing up that hit about 5 feet from his head. So luckily my father was already born, so I would still be here, but I kind of liked my grandfather, so I liked him being around too. But my point is that, did you ever have the sense, because obviously you and I were born well after Pearl Harbor, when people would say, remember Pearl Harbor, it didn't have that negative an effect on me. Did it on you? Did you think, well, why the hell are we still talking about this? That's bullshit. That was 20 years ago. I wasn't born.
No,
how could it matter?
I understood why it was important. I mean, it's what got the United States into the biggest war of all time and the most important historical event in human history. So yeah, I totally understood the importance there. Yeah, I mean, it was obviously just absolutely shocking. I think it's worth noting here that it's not like just very much like Hamas's attack. Americans acted like it came out of a clear blue sky, but it didn't. And the U.S. had been imposing a naval blockade against
sanctions
for years. The Japanese were feeling super squeezed. Their economy was suffering. They didn't know what to do about it. They didn't see and they thought, it's really an interesting cultural misunderstanding. I think their calculus was that we viewed Hawaii as a colony, a distant colony, and they thought they would just sort of like whacking us across our nose, like warning us, like that we would view Pearl Harbor as sort of not personal because it wasn't a state. Well, it wasn't a state.
I know. I'm laughing that they thought, we were going to just go, meh.
No, I think they thought we would be pissed, but not that we would go to war over it. That like we would be more careful, and we'd be like, that would like open us up to negotiations with them. Now, obviously, that's just not how Americans are wired. And they just didn't understand that we were going to be like, fuck you, we kill you all. And
we did. And we also had unconditional surrender, which was that, some of our discussions was that the inappropriate response, because Japan, especially the last, say, I think year or 18 months before we dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they did have peace offerings saying, listen, let us keep the emperor.
Yeah.
And then, which of course is exactly what happened. Mm-hmm. Which comes back to the Scott Stantis view of war, which is so fucking stupid, because if we had talked about it at the beginning, you end up at the same place as you do at the end. Anyway, let me ask you a historic question, Ted, because I think I think our listeners enjoy these. Is Germany declaring war on the United States after Pearl Harbor?
Yes.
A couple of questions. Should they have done it? And second of all, if they hadn't, would the United States have stayed out of the European theater of operation and not participate in that end of the war?
Well, you and I both know that FDR wanted to get involved in Europe.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we had, the Lend-Lease program with the UK. There had already been skirmishes with, merchant marine shipping across the Atlantic. There had been a U-boat war against the US. So I think we would have gotten involved one way or the other. The only question was sort of how and what the pretext would be, but I think we would have, no question about it. But maybe I don't know. We weren't allies with the Soviet Union yet, so it's not like Germany's invasion of Russia would have done the job by itself. But
France was kind of a friend of ours.
And we sort of were like, well, sucks to be you. We didn't do anything, I mean, hell, we continued to acknowledge the Vichy regime and not the Free French. That was pretty shameful, pretty bad moment. I don't know. I think we would have gone in. I think there's no question about that. Should Germany have declared war against the US? Probably it was a bad move, because obviously we know it was a bad move because of what happened. But I think what the Germans were desperate for an ally. And I gotta say, to this day, I've never understood why they thought Japan was important. I mean, that Axis alliance didn't do Germany any good at all in World War II. I mean, they got hardly anything from Il Duce, and they got
Well, good
nothing,
wine, really good wine.
but they got nothing from Japan. Well, they were occupying France, so they had all the best wine already.
That's true. That's
And
true.
so,
With Japan, the only thing I can figure is that Japan's industrial base was still significant. And the fact that they could have expanded into the occupied areas of China and grown those, and Hitler, would have had access to what, the product of their manufacturing. However, because they decided to bomb Pearl Harbor and were using all that manufacturing to defend themselves, Germany wasn't going to get any of that. I'm not sure he wasn't the greatest strategic thinker that way. He didn't.
He wasn't a complete like idiot though.
I mean, no. I'm not.
People like for example, it's like, well, why did he invade the Soviet Union? I mean, he invaded the Soviet Union because he was after the oil fields in Baku, Azerbaijan, and he needed them because of the energy block, the naval blockade of occupied Europe. So, I mean, he wasn't a fucking fool, I guess is my point.
No. I understand that.
But I just don't think, look, all I can say is in the game of risk that was World War II, getting Japan was kind of like, to mix board game analogies, was like getting Mediterranean or something. Like, you just don't care. It's like, you can have it. It just doesn't do you any good. It might do you good in 15, 20 years, but in the immediate future, it was not important. It did not change a goddamn thing. The Japanese and the Germans weren't really able to help each other. They were just too far apart.
Right. Well, they're far apart, and both of them were using their industrial strengths to support their own war efforts. They couldn't.
How could they share? How could they have done anything? They're separated by such massive distances. They couldn't share material or anything.
Well, they have boats.
Well, what are they going to really? I mean, how are they going to get there? They have to go all the way. They have to travel 10,000 miles, to get all the way over to the North Sea. They're going to be sunk by the Allies before they ever get there. It's like a total. Not to mention, Europe had a naval blockade. I mean, I don't know. There was the boats weren't going to do any good. Anyway, I think. Look, I guess another question is, October 7th, the Israelis said that was their 9/11. I think that's probably right. It has made the Israeli people completely fucking batshit crazy, in the same way that we did after 9/11.
Yeah. And you make bad decisions. You and I talk about this a lot. You make bad decisions, and I've told my children this. You make bad decisions when you're upset. You make bad decisions when you're angry. You're at a bar and someone bumps into you and spills his beer all over you. You're going to turn around, you're going to punch him in the face. Well, that's probably a bad decision, especially if he's way bigger than you.
True.
Trust me on this.
And with that, I think we should wrap it up.
So there it is.
Scott, where can people find all things Stantisian?
Go to gocomics.com/Scott Stantis. That's one word. Gocomics.com/Prickly City. Again, one word. That's my political comic strip. You can go to chicagotribune.com and go to opinion and see a gallery of the work I do for them. And you can hear me and Ted Rall and other friends and commentators at centerclip.com. There's like mini podcasts, 30 seconds, no longer than 5 minutes, and very much worth your time. Ted, where can we see things all Rawlian?
You can go to rall.com, RALL.com, whowhatwhy.org, sputniknews.com, and you can listen to the Final Countdown radio show on Rumble, where I co-host with Angie Wong.
And it's really good, and especially when I'm on it.
Yeah, no, like you were today.
Yeah, that was fun.
You were awesome as always. So thank you, Scott. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Ted.
Soon. And
keep it real, as the kids say.
Yep. Till next week. Bye, everyone.
Ciao.